be suspicious of every deal out there. Because it's not because they love you, it's because they're trying to maximize revenue or profit, hopefully profit, yes.
Kids can't eat on their own, so they're going to have adults come in with them, so then the adults will be charged anyways. So even if they eat for free, really, I think they're making money because the adults are going to be eating.
So if they get a patron who would not have been there, not constrained situation, because obviously you're not going to do this if you're at capacity, just like dumb. You be giving away stuff when you don't have to. Nobody benefits, well, the customers might, but then you create frustration because too many people show up and they can't get satisfied, and that doesn't make anybody happy. When you have low demand, you might do this. What else do you do to make sure you're not giving away the farm or the food?
Time constraint.
Time constraint.
Strict menu.
Strict menu. Say more with that.
In case we generally eat less, but what meals you offer could be at a lower cost than.
So you say, order off of this menu, the kids menu, with 3 items on it. So you got lured in, you stay, maybe you'll come back next time, a good experience. And the waiter person will be extremely nice to you because they don't want you to feel like, okay, I got gimmicked to come here, they want you to come back. It's amazing how nice they are to you under those circumstances. I hate when I don't tip for a carry-out. I only tip if the person makes a conversation. But if I don't make eye contact with you on carry-out, I'm not tipping. I'm sorry. Because you didn't give me any service. The tip is for the person who waited on you. The cashier handing you your food as you've given your credit card doesn't deserve... Well, anyway. That's just my own personal thing. And don't hate me for saying that. I do tip when I like the people. So if you start by being really friendly to me when I come in, I'm going to be guilted into, I got to give a tip because of being so nice. Oh man, God. Do not make eye contact. How are you, sir? I'm awful. Anyway, now you know. I go to confession tomorrow. Where was I? So you understand what restrictions you have to put in place? Whether it's kids eat, because I can make kids eat free tomorrow or next Wednesday, Tuesday. It could be anything because, like, oh yeah, I'm strong, I can tame the animal regardless. Bring a tiger! Bring a lion! I can kill it with my hands. A kid, I don't know if he's a kid. There's a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell has this alternative way of thinking. He says, the reason David could kill Goliath is because Goliath was lumbersome, he was clumsy. He was blind, giantism is terrible, all the joints hurt, and David was agile. So David was actually the guy with the advantage. Interesting hypothesis. Back to our problem here. Change the problem. The advertising effect is what they're doing. So they can pay an advertising company to bring people in, or they can run an internal thingy like this, get the people in. But they have to do this. Even if they don't do it explicitly, do it implicitly. So an implicit form is smaller menu. We're not going to charge you a higher price, we'll give you a limited menu. It's the same thing. Like the cereal companies do. They put less cereal in the box. So you look at, it used to be 14 ounces, now it's 13.5 ounces. Oh, look at that. They keep dropping the quantity, but the box is the same size. So they'll find a way to make it work for them. And I'm not against anybody for saying this, I'm just telling you, just saying, as I say. With the apostrophe after the end, just saying. Young enough to know, at least I hang out with young people. So the restrictions and constraints, I want you to pay attention to that. Because if you don't do that, you're giving away the farm. So you have to say, special conditions apply. You can't get, when you go in the stores out, rain check. You can't get a rain check. No rain checks. You're late, you missed the sale, sorry. We can't extend the hours, we can't change the menu, we put restrictions to make sure you can't fly on these blackout days, you have to fly when we arrange for it, when the demand is low. The whole thing is to get you there when the demand is low, not when the demand is high. So they're not loving you, they're loving themselves. And you're just a pawn, and you are not aware you're a pawn. A willing pawn, this is not bad. So then they say, what price would you charge adults so if you can get that worked out? I'll make it easier on the test so you don't have to do a calculation. You just show me you understand the method. I won't tell you what, but I'll make it simple enough because I don't need for you to be spending time on a calculation. I just need that you understand what to do, the process more than the actual math. So we fix that. All right, let me get to another interesting problem, and I probably should run upstairs and grab the copies. There is a problem that used to be in the textbook, and the publishers dropped the problem because people complained it was too hard. And I kept thinking, this is my favorite problem in the whole book. Why would you do that? So maybe my way of thinking is different than most instructors who felt students complain the problem is too hard. We don't want the problem anymore. So we got rid of the problem. As I said, I'll go get the copies of the problem. Sorry?
That problem that you said was too hard, is that can be on there?
No, it's going to be there.
It is going to be on?
The intuition of the problem. It's the same. It's the same problem here. It's just couched a little differently. And if you can recognize same nonsense differently, more power to you. The solution is not as important as recognizing. It's the same guy who's dressed in different clothes. Same guy. If I came in different clothes and you didn't recognize me, that means that your powers of observation are very underdeveloped. Has it ever happened that you met somebody you knew and you didn't recognize them? You're probably too young for that to happen, but some of us who are older, oh, I didn't recognize you. Man, you changed. Yeah. But if they haven't changed that much, it means that you're not looking with the same eye. If you saw me in the grocery store, you probably wouldn't recognize me. Because it's like you didn't expect to see me there. So, anyway. You saw me in the grocery store?
No, but I have a question about this problem.
Yes.
So when you're doing this problem, you're trying to find the maximum revenue and what price you would charge. Are you treating Q kids in the problem as another variable, like we would treat like advertising or income?
Well, the test I will make it simple.
You'll simplify the equation to 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so that you don't have to, because I want the thinking.
Right.
You understand that in reality, there's that relationship.
Okay.
So if I give you that question, I would ask you to explain what the coefficient means.
Okay.
But not solve it because solving is more involved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put anything for anyone to fall into a trap. I want for people to look at it and say, yeah, I understand what it means. So the interpretation there is, and I did read your answer, so I know your answer is right. What's the interpretation of the 0.5?
Oh, as the quantity of kids go up, the quantity of adults goes up by 0.5. So multiply it by
Thank you.
2. So as the quantity of kids goes up by 2, the quantity of adults goes up by 1.
Because you can't have 0.5 when you could, but I don't want to hang around with 0.5 of a person. So let's say intuitively, what is it telling us? So can somebody take that one closer to the end zone? What was said? What does it mean? What does it look like? So before we had the program, we had our demand. And now they said, okay, kids fly free. And then now the analyst said, so that's what's going to happen. Just talk it out. Let me hear you say, make some noise, people.
For every extra 2 kids, we get one adult.
So make it more commonsensical, like you're talking to a kid. Explain that to a kid.
Kids fly free, so now more adults want to go. There's more demand for adults.
Okay.
So as they bring their kids, more will come.
So you fish in the right pond. Which kind of adults want to go?
Kids.
Exactly. Which kind of adults do not want to go? So you're changing the culture. You're saying, okay, if you have no kids, please stay away. This plane is going to have a lot of noise, a lot of screaming, a lot of whining, and you don't want to be here. So find another. Yeah. When you go shopping for vacations, I don't mean this to sound awful when I say it, but you don't want to go someplace with undesirables. So you might pay a higher price to avoid the riffraff. Okay, I don't want to travel on that plane because all those people are flying budget. They probably can't afford much of anything. I'm a snob, not Europe, but never mind. I don't want to be there. I'll pay a higher price to be in a different location. Like the people who shop at Whole Foods, whole paycheck. They want to get away from the rest of us. They don't want to be seen with me. at Meyer and Kroger, they want to go and have a nice exclusive relationship with people who will treat them nicely. I don't know. I should go over there one day and see what it's like. Maybe I'm just like biased against Whole Foods. So in my neighborhood, they opened a Fresh Time. And I go to Fresh Time almost every day, just to avoid going to Whole Foods. And they're not even in the same league. But I kind of feel like I've stepped up my grocery shopping. You know who brought Fresh Time to Michigan? Meyer. So there's a Meyer here and there's a Fresh Time like half mile away. So I want you to think that through. It's kind of in the same analytical area. Why would you bring in another grocery store type?
Because the old one's getting old. People want something new. They want variety.
Okay. So you go back to the homework as well, because I said you might decide to open another store in a town that's saturated. Opportunity cost, I saw 3 hands. 1, 2, 3.
Attract a different segment of customers.
So you might figure I'm going after a different segment. Yes.
Also, people might buy certain items at the more expensive store and then buy a lot of other items at the less expensive store.
You schizophrenic people? Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, because there might be, maybe they don't want to buy cheap meat, but they're willing to buy cheap vegetables and fruits.
I love that. I love that. You give me now a rationalization for why you go to Fresh Time. By the way, have I ever told you my definition of rationalize? Rational lies. Convince yourself that something that is not rational is actually rational. Yes.
They might not want, well, they might not be able to put a huge, large store like Meyer everywhere, so the Fresh Time could catch the customers in between, and the people that are just going for groceries, not necessarily the superstore.
I love what you just said. I'm sorry. Forgive me, the rest of you. I don't know if anybody heard or knows why I love that comment. Can you repeat a part of it? Anything you can remember?
They might not be able to in a really populated area put a huge, large store
Stop.
everywhere.
Tell me why you went in that direction. Love that. That's what I love about it. So they're customizing the store. Tell me why have you experienced with that? I mean, why did you go for that?
Just the real estate might not be available to have that large parking lot and large store.
When you see that there's more profits to be made or opportunities to
Yeah.
capture before somebody else gets in there, and you say, you know what? I'm not going to let Whole Foods come and take this location. I'm going to bring in another guy who looks like he's competing with me, but in a slightly different market segment. 2 miles east of here is Rochester High School, maybe 2.5 miles. And there's a Kroger on the southeast corner, and the Taco Bell that calls Bill Saputo his first angst. Cost him $500,000, he said. And then the second one cost him even more. But anyway, I didn't realize that people love Taco Bell that much. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't pay attention to these things. But anyway, there used to be a grocery store on the northwest corner, southeast and northwest. And Kroger bought the grocery store and closed it down. And made sure that there would never be another grocery store on that intersection. There's a Gordon Food Services there in the building now. Same idea. Kroger doesn't mind GFS, because GFS is going after different customers. People buying bulk and wholesale as opposed to a direct competitor. The direct competitor was just a pain for them, and they said, okay, when the store was having issues, they bought it, shut it down, and control the real estate. McDonald's owns many, many lots that are vacant around the country. They have a land bank. And it's not that they want to put a store on that location, they just don't want a competitor putting a store on that location. So they will see a location and say, this is too close for comfort. Let's buy the land and hold the land. And if they're really into real estate, they're just like watching every location as a potential threat to one of their locations and thinking, how can we buy that and resell it to somebody? I don't know if the law allows them to discriminate like this, but if you put a high enough price and it's zoned appropriately, the fact that Kroger managed to do it. It's happening every day while you're sleeping or not paying attention. People are making these deals that you say, oh, that happened, but you're not asking why did it happen. It's happening because somebody is like paying attention and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We will make sure this never happens again. Later in the semester, I'll talk about gas stations and the same owner on both sides of the street. Because there was an empty lot, duplicate yourself across the street. Even get a different franchise. So you might be Mobile here and Exxon there, same owner. Because you don't want somebody else taking half of your customers. So you say, you know what? I'm going to incur the cost of having 2 gas stations. Because if somebody else gets it, they have half my customers. And there's enough economies of scale from being in the location and having maybe an information system that can manage both of your stores, employees who are flexible between the two. You make it work. On Oakland University's campus, the franchise holder for food services is Chartwell's. So all the employees you see in the food court are Chartwell's employees. They're not employees of the franchise. Chartwell's holds a franchise for everything over there. So a worker might change his hat, her hat, and go to the other side because the boss says, okay, we need more demand over there. You go over there, change your hat from Subway to Chick-fil-A. Okay, fine. Likewise, you might own, as I said, 2 stores across the street, even different brands. The manager at the Fresh Time near me came from Meijer. Because the manager they had was not managing well, so they said, we need somebody with more experience. They brought in someone from Meijer to manage the Fresh Time. Is this of any interest to you, or am I just like... Ideally, this is the class I would love to teach and not do all the other stuff, but I know that this is just conversation. It has no real value. It's popcorn, not meat and potatoes, or whatever vegetarians eat with potatoes. Beans and potatoes. So, again, I want for you to be able to see the problem, diagnose what's wrong, and even if you don't propose a solution, at least recognize what ails the problem. So I want to show you the other problem, but what I will do, since I don't have my copies, I'll run upstairs, so we'll take our break a little early, and then I'll come back, I'll show you that problem, and then we'll review for the test. So no more new content beyond this one problem, where I want you to get the intuition. It's the same problem we're looking at, it looks different. In the Great Recession, in 2007, 2008, 2009, there was this guy who was talking about black swans, black swan events. A black swan event is something that could happen, but just because you've never seen it happen before doesn't mean it can't happen. So they said the quants, the young guys coming out of Harvard and Wharton, who were putting the bad mortgages with the good mortgages, bundling them and selling them to China as AAA when they knew that there was some bad apples in there. So they would buy 20 houses and chop up the 20 houses and make 20 bundle mortgages. So the bad mortgages are bundled with the good mortgages, but they're selling everything as good fruit. And the guy said, look, nobody knows what we're doing. Hopefully we'll be all rich by the time people figure out what we're doing. Most people in the West have never seen a black swan. But you go to Australia, the feathers on the swans are black. Never seen it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. When I first came to Michigan, I realized in Royal Oak, the squirrels. Oh, interesting. Black squirrels in Royal Oak. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So that's what I want to know, that you can see it's the same problem. Hey, it's the same problem, it just looks different. Same problem. Because the principle is always going to be the same, equate marginals. And if it's a constraint problem, bring in the constraint. Every single problem is the same nonsense, different. I have to tell you that I like this problem, the thinking part of it, because of the counterintuitive things like, oh, fewer kids. So in order for this to work, you have to place restrictions. So you get the publicity of doing a good thing, but you don't actually have to deliver. I posted the 3 pages from the textbook, the older edition, on Moodle, for you to read. And maybe what I'll ask you to do is to tell me what you don't like about the textbook's problem. In other words, more of that thinking. critical thinking. And I reworked the problem in a way that I think is a little more manageable because truth be told, I hated the problem too. So I understand how other instructors and students were frustrated by the problem. Until I reworked the problem, I hated it. And once I reworked it, I said, keep the problem. But I was the only instructor in the country who wanted the problem kept in the textbook. I made that up, by the way. I don't know. You see, the publishers are smart. They say people don't like it, you need to drop it. So your book gets smaller and smaller because if people aren't covering the concept, then there's no point in keeping it.
Which means they have a reason to publish a new edition.
Sorry?
Which means they have a reason to publish a new edition.
It's a game, a racket, I say. They're always trying to figure out how to make it look different so they can charge the $250. It's a good racket to be in. 1 second. Once we get past the exam and I realize what you're good at, I still want other suggestions from you as the things you would like me to cover because we're trying to reinvent the class so that the next group gets a better experience. So I appreciate what you've given me so far, and I will continue to take suggestions along those lines. That's the flexibility we have as instructors.
It sounds like there's a lot of internal think in whatever meetings or whatever is going on regarding it. Do they have any outside opinion?
Well, we are accredited, and we show everything to the accreditors.
Not just regarding like...
We have a board of advisors as well, but some stuff doesn't come up. The reason this comes up is because when the students perpetually do, so we're going to give the assessment sometime in the next 4 weeks to the graduating students.
Yeah.
So I'm in charge of the economics portion of the assessment, but I didn't write the questions. So the guy who was giving the test says, do you want to rewrite the economics questions? Because we don't like having the score be 30% every single time. This means the students aren't retaining anything. I said the problem is if I rewrite the questions, since I didn't teach them anything, I haven't taught the last 4 rounds of the class, I'd be giving them questions I don't know the answers to. But if I get to teach the class consistently, I would know what I can test on. I can bring questions from our experience, things you will remember. The other thing is, it has to be content you can remember 2 years later. Not how to solve the problem, but the thinking on the problem. Because if you ask people to solve a problem and they haven't solved it in 2 years, you're going to get a lower score. But if you say, what's the logic behind this? Hopefully they've been able to use the concept in the past 2 years has been building strength in the area as opposed to anything like that. So that's what I'm trying to redesign. And I think if I can get this case to a level where we can use it, it'll take maybe a year and a half to figure out what content to keep in and what to drop. But if I can make it an online experience, so students will watch the segments, I can merge them into 1, 2 chapters too, and say, okay, here's the story of a local guy, here's the problem he's had, analyze from this content, what other information do you need? Because we want to find out what information is missing. Can students recognize missing information? Can they recognize irrelevant information? Can they reason out different alternative ways of thinking through the problem? And can they actually come up with a solution? That's the assessment that I put together 15 years ago, how we want critical thinking. Nobody else in the school wants critical thinking as a goal. I created it in 2005. And people said, the problem is we can't teach people to think critically. We can improve their critical thinking skills, but we are not teaching your content. So how do you get the critical thinking in? So I'm always thinking, how can I have the student not only answer the question, but question the answer? Show me that they're doing a little more. Not just telling me what the 0.5 means, but translating it into, well, you need 2 adults with kids. Not just 2 adults with kids. And you're scaring off 1 adult who has no kids. So the full analysis is being done. That's what opportunity cost is about. And I think that if you get your mind around opportunity cost, game changer, you win the game every single time. Because other people aren't thinking like that. So, if you will bear with me, I will show you how I arrive at opportunity cost as a useful concept. I know it's useful. But since the majority of the people in the world get by without caring about it, it might be a gold coin that nobody values. But it's real. It's real. So the way I introduce the whole idea of opportunity cost is I start with a simple textbook approach. If you've ever seen a production possibilities front here, it basically shows two goods on the two axes, and it shows you the trade-offs. With a certain amount of resources, you can buy this much of this, that much of the other, or any combination on this line. If you're buying it, it's called consumption. But if you're producing, it's called production. So it becomes a production possibilities curve, what is possible in production, if you are the producer of the goods. If this were two goods and you were the consumer, it would be called consumption possibilities, what you possibly could consume. Okay, so that's so that you are producing something. And I made this problem up several years ago. These were my neighbors, David and Laura, and they don't know that I made up a problem about them, and nobody has ever told them. And as if you never tell, if you know them, please don't tell. Because you should tell stories. I make my life interesting. I teach, so if I'm not interested in what I'm saying, I'm not going to enjoy it. So sadly, have I told you this is the Addington Comedy Show? Starring yours truly. I try to make sure that what I'm saying is interesting to me. And that's why you might be burdened by it because it's not interesting to you. But if I have to talk for 3 hours, I need to be able to tolerate listening to myself talk for 3 hours. So, and I love to use relationship examples for some reason. Happily married, by the way. So I created this problem about, and this is on Moodle, that's the first thing there, what is possible in production. So the opportunity cost, which is what I'm getting to, the concept is really the slope of this curve. That's the first pass of the concept. You're saying, if David can bake 30 rolls in a day, or spear 10 fish in a day, if he wants to spear fish, what does he have to give up? If he's up here at this point, this is his job, and he wants to switch to this job, he has to give up baking 30 rolls to spear 10 fish. So the opportunity cost is 30 over 10. He gives up 3 rolls for every fish he spears. Opportunity cost is the slope of the function, where you measure the opportunity cost of the thing on the horizontal axis. dy dx in a math class. The slope of a function, that's what opportunity cost is. That's the basic idea. What do you have to give up to get something else that you want? Very key to what I said is that you need to want this thing. If you don't want it, it's like your shadow when there's no sun out. It's useless. You can use your shadow to figure out what time it is if you don't have a watch. If you figure out every day that the length of the shadow can tell you the time. But if there's no sunlight, it's useless. Solar panels in Alaska, I don't know. Opportunity cost, the very simplest idea is the slope of the function where you're measuring the opportunity cost of the thing on the horizontal axis. You're saying, if I want more of the thing on the x-axis, what do I have to give up on the y-axis? That's the basic idea. The slope of a line, or curve, rise over run. So the opportunity cost here, if the question is asked, what is the opportunity cost of fish? You would say 3 rolls per fish. Over here, you would say it is 50 on 10, 5 rolls per fish. Opportunity cost at that level is useful for determining who should do what. It becomes the currency when there's no currency. And if I am absolutely worse at everything than you are, and hopefully this is like so low-hanging fruit, you're thinking, Professor, just keep moving. You can do everything better than I can. There are 2 jobs to be done. Which one should I do? That's the idea. That's where we first use it. You can do everything faster than I can do it, but there are 2 things to be done. Which one are you going to do? Which one am I going to do? So the extreme case is you can do everything better than I, and I can only do one thing. I get to do the one thing because I can't do the other. So my comparative advantage would be the thing I can do, not the thing I can't do, and therefore you will end up doing the other thing whether you like it or not. You just happen to be better at it than I am. In this case, I can't do it at all. So if you're ever volunteering, and you say I can do any of these jobs, the person who only chooses one area gets the area. And you get stuck with whatever's left over. So if you are savvy, you will only choose one area. And the people who choose multiple areas will be picked last because if they want to fit you in, there's only one thing you can do, and they fit you in. You game the system. So if you are absolutely better at one thing, And I'm absolutely better at the other thing. It's easy, low-hanging fruit. Yeah, you do the thing you're better at. When you're absolutely better at everything, you end up doing both things. Because the other person is slower at the thing they're doing, and you do your job, and then you come help them. So the person who is absolutely better at everything ends up, well, I want to say with the short end of the stick, working the hardest. It's a function of being better. But if you can game the system and only choose one, then you get the thing you chose and you don't have to worry. Every year we volunteer for committees, and I would choose three or four things that I'm interested in. And it always backfires on me. I always get stuck on a committee that I hate. And I keep saying, you know what, I'm just going to choose the one I want and not choose multiple. The reason I'm teaching this class is because it was my third preference. And nobody else chose it. I'm glad because I would never have met you. But see how things work? So you have to be like, okay. So the guy said, well, if you didn't want it, you shouldn't put it on the list. He says choose up to 3. Some people chose 1. I chose up to 3. And I got to meet two lovely people. So that's the first idea of opportunity cost. What do you have to give up to get? As you think about the problem I gave you, this is the most important thing I will say tonight. The thing that you choose to do on your own, with nobody else intervening, must be the thing that gives you the highest level of reward. So in the problem, it was the Pistons game for $40, but you paid $50. So you were guaranteed a $10 surplus. Beyond your payment, you were going to get $10 more of satisfaction that you were not paying for. Or was the OU game for free? The fact that you went to the OU game says you valued it more than the $10 surplus. That's the message. I could have had this $10 surplus at any point in time. I chose something else. I think I started the class with that analogy. A product you love is on sale, 50% off. You walk into the store, you come up with a different product. You are willing to pay full price for your product, it's on sale, you come up with a different product. The product you come up with has to be more valuable to you, because the thing that you wanted is on sale, and you would have got it 2 for 1, and you left both of them to take something else. In the same product category, of course. That's why I chose 2 basketball games, to say that you still have the choice to get this $10 surplus value, a $50 deal for $40. I could have brought the price even lower than $40. The thing that you chose is the thing that gave you the greatest satisfaction. Not just absolute satisfaction, but net satisfaction. Satisfaction minus cost. So the net effect. Because if you're going to be with somebody who's high maintenance, or you just love being with this person, but they drive you crazy, choose the person next door, who adores you, who is a simple person and doesn't have any airs about them. Be happy versus being seen with this high-profile person. We have to make these calculations. You might want something so badly, but then realize you don't want it that badly because it's really costly. Have you ever been there? Don't answer. I'm not a therapist. You think you want something, and it turns out that's not good for you. So if you are willing to pay a high price for something, and then later on you're not going to hold on to that thing, did you make a good decision? I hope that makes sense, because I'm just trying to make sure that the foundation is planted. So that's the first idea of comparative advantage, of opportunity cost I want to convey. The other thing I wanted to focus on is opportunity cost of your time. In this problem I say, so this is your workplace, and this is your home, and I need to do a control minus. Would that work? Control minus? Yep. Alright, one more thing here. You live here, you work there. One of these gas stations have a higher price than the one past your home. You decide to go to the one past your home to buy gas. To save 5 cents a gallon, which is $1 for 20 gallons. What's the opportunity cost of your time? The extra wear and tear to go the extra 2 miles, obviously is something you need to count. But your time, your 5 minutes of going back and forth. So there are 2 things that cost you, but the idea of getting a deal might be so attractive. Yeah, I got a deal. No, you didn't get a deal. You spent $10 to earn $9. It's negative. But you don't focus on that. It's like people go to the casino, they tell you about their winnings. They never tell you about how much they've lost. So when the overall equation is put together, they're losers. But they think, man, I won. Caught a fish this big. caught a cold and caught every other thing that you want to catch. Right? So you want to make sure you're doing the full cost. It's probably another way of saying full cost. Not just the out-of-pocket cost, but the full cost, time and money. The third example I wanted to focus on is the opportunity cost of space, which is the problem you have in your hand. And I hope this is not the same. Yeah, this is the textbooks. So I copied and pasted the 3 pages. And what you have is this portion right here. The rest of it is online. But I'll talk you through it because everything that's important is on the handout. Let me go to one other idea here. 2 other ideas. And I'm not going beyond opportunity cost because if I don't say anything for the rest of the semester, if opportunity cost is a good foundation, basement for your house, the house is going to be a strong house. You're going to be able to figure things out that other people are just looking past. I talked about McDonald's deciding that they don't want to be in the burger business, they want to be in the real estate business. Walmart is also in the real estate business. Walmart owns a lot of land, but beyond the land, Walmart gives you space in their store for your merchandise. So Walmart is your landlord. This area is leased to Frito-Lay. The grocery stores do it too. So if you go to the grocery store at 1 a.m., you'll see the Frito-Lay guy stocking that area. Or the Hallmark person stocking the Hallmark cards. Or different merchandisers coming in. And they'll mess up the one next door and fix theirs because they want you to look at theirs. And they pay by location. Location. So eye level is a higher price than down on the bottom or out of reach. Everything is priced. Sometimes you see a store within a store. So you'll go into Best Buy and you'll see an Apple store or Windows store, or it's like a mini mall. Or you'll go into Meijer and you'll see a bank and a hair salon and dog grooming and other things. The pharmacy, that's not theirs. CVS runs all of Target's pharmacies. Target decided we don't need to get out of this business, and they outsourced all that to CVS. Walmart outsourced theirs to some other company. So basically, they're leasing space. They're selling merchandise on the shelves, but they're leasing space either on the shelves or in their store within a store is the concept. Because they figure that's a faster way to make money. We can make more money leasing you the space. The rent is better than the pennies on each unit of sale. That's what McDonald's is doing. Walmart does the same thing. Experts. Walmart is the best at this. They invented it, I would say. Because Walmart's information system was so good that they decided. Walmart will tell you, here's the space we're going to give you. This is the price we're going to charge you. And we charge you for every transaction running through our system. It's the McDonald's story over again, but McDonald's did not invent it. Walmart invented it. So you go to, well, when Sam was alive, you go and say, Mr. Sam, I'd like to put my item in your stores, and here's how much it costs me to produce, and this is the price I would like you to sell it at. And Sam Walton will say, you don't tell me what price to sell it at. I tell you what price I'm going to sell it at. The power of the retailer. It changed the whole game where the manufacturer lost power to the retailer. Walmart has more items in their stores than anybody else. When you say, I want some of your shelf space, he tells you, let me think about it. Well, he's dead, but anyway. The idea is, Walmart tells you whether or not they'll give you the shelf space, the real estate, and what price they will sell your item at. And if you can't make a profit at that price, never mind. That's how they make the decision about whose products to carry. Here's the price we're going to charge you. I can't make a profit. Bye-bye. See you later. Find elsewhere to sell your product. Because we're not carrying a product that will sit on the shelf and not turn over. The same way McDonald's does the research for every franchise, telling them we're going to advertise and we're going to tell you what are the good prices, etc. Walmart does that for every product in the store. They do the research on what's the best price to sell it at. They might not be the only ones doing the research, because if the product is sold in multiple outlets, then the price is not going to vary too much. So there's some constraining of the pricing, because you can't price it too differently than another store. And certainly, once online came in, Amazon is a game changer. Amazon sells everything. And it's beating the brick and mortar stores, because if they don't get into the online game and know it well, they're going to lose. What does Amazon need? A truck. And now they have trucks, but before that, the question is, why do they have trucks now? Because they would have just put it on the FedEx truck and have it to your house, prime or non-prime. And another thing that Amazon does is they send your product to the post office. So the post office becomes the last delivery person to you. We talked about this earlier, didn't we? Right. So everybody's figuring out how to make the maximum profit. This is a fantastically interesting game if you can get your mind around it. So the point I wanted to make is that location, time, space, everything has an opportunity cost. And sometimes we don't think about that. If you are sick, don't come to class. Good opportunity cost decision. Especially if I'm recording it and if I can put up enough videos, maybe you can get the content. But make those decisions. So back to the Oakland University story. Our current dean hates online. Hates online. Wayne and Central are eating our lunch with online. Guess where Oakland's business program is going? You might buy the location that doesn't increase your revenues to prevent somebody else from stealing that location and cannibalizing your revenues. That's the case we're in right now. This happens every day around us, but we don't recognize it because we're not looking for it. Opportunity cost. So you're thinking ahead of the game. And the question is, how did Wayne double its program? How did Central, I hate to say it, I think Oakland is a tad above Central. Any Central grads in the room? Oakland is much better than Central. Much, much better than Central. But the state of Michigan allowed Central to open a building on our front yard. You drive out there, you see this big building, Central Michigan University. 2 state universities, and they allow this cannibalization to take place. On our front yard, there's a building that says Central Michigan University. And Wayne State is in Oakland County, in several different locations, and in Macomb County. And you go over to Macomb Community College, there'll be like 10 different university signs on the key, whatever, what do you call it? Because Macomb wants a university, badly. But there are more seats available in the state of Michigan than there are graduating students. So Lansing says, you can't have a university. So Macomb says, okay, we're going to invite everybody to come and use our facility. Like the Walmart now. You use the space, brand it your degree, use our facility. Our residents are convenience. And we'll work out the articulation agreements to make sure that all of our courses transfer into yours, and we're not duplicating and all that kind of good stuff, yes.
You commented about that the dean doesn't like online. You guys are going to go there because you don't want somebody else eating the lunch.
No, our lunch is already eaten.
Well, right. Is there any, and maybe it doesn't have anything to do with economics, but is there anybody that looks at it basically saying, is that even a business we want to be in? Like, we get it that we're losing it, but do we even want to be there?
You're thinking like an economist. You're thinking like an economist now. Opportunity costs. Online is the death of quality. But when someone screams fire in a crowded theater and the lights are off, are you going to stand in the way and be trampled? When somebody says sell the stock, are you going to buy it? The price is going to sink when the people sell. So you want to get out first. You know it's a bad decision to sell, but the herd is headed for the door. You say, you know what, these dummies. But you go with the herd until you can recover. When the tidal wave is coming, you don't say, hey, look at me, bring all the tidal wave. You say, no, let me have higher ground. Lift me up and let me stand. You want to get out of the way because you don't control the environment. When the majority are going in a way that you don't want to go, reluctantly, you go. Hating it all the way.
So you started referencing a gentleman that, or just referencing the idea that the value of the MBA is no longer as high. Future. Right. So we don't believe in the value.
Huh?
We don't believe in the value of it then. If we know it devalues it, but if we make the statement that we believe in the value of it, but then we know that a choice we're going to make devalues it.
So we can close our program then.
That's what it sounds like.
Nobody wants to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So hopefully this fits into the opportunity cost concept. Otherwise, we are like off in a cul-de-sac. Yeah. Opportunity cost of space. I hope that you got the idea, not only in physical location, but in terms of the shelf space. Shelf space has value. And what in this case, Walmart is thinking about, If we put a product on the shelf, we give you X linear feet of space at eye level and wherever, or we give you this area, your store, in our store. So the best idea here, I think, is and I hope this works, I don't mean to sound sexist, the merchandiser for Hallmark in Meyer or Kroger. Generally it's a female. You go in the store, you see her arranging the cards to make sure, because when you pick up a card and you don't like it, you just put it back and you don't make sure it looks right, but she has 10 stores she has to get to every day, make sure the merchandise is stocked correctly and looking good, because the Meyer person is not looking at her stock. If it looks badly, no, sorry. We are not here to take care of you, you come take care of your own thing. So it's the same way Bill Saputo has to make sure his stores look nice and the bathrooms are clean, because corporate is not monitoring that. You have to ask, how do I maximize my little thing in here? Space. That's the problem we're going to. And if you get the idea now, maybe I can stop. But space has value. The question is, how do you value it? Frequently, we value it incorrectly. So, here's my story. I'll start as a story and then I'll go to the problem. If all we get is a story, I'm okay with that. I'm going to divide the room right over here. So imagine we were producing a product in here. And we loved our product. And a new guy came along and said, you know what? You guys need to reinvent your products. So it could be we were providing Oakland County residents with a solid foundational undergraduate program. And somebody says, you can add an MBA and make more profits and hire more faculty. If that works for you. Well, get a PhD and get a specialized masters and get these other programs on. Create more buzz. Rather than be vanilla undergraduate training Oakland County students how to think from 18 to 22. No, we're going to get into exotic. So if you get into exotic and you don't hire more faculty, you have to reassign some of the faculty to work in the exotic. You're producing a product. Let's go back to a product because more of you might be into actual products than services, but services are important too. We're producing a certain product in here, and somebody says, you know what, there's this other product that's sexier. We should try producing that as well. With the same staff and the same capital, you have to figure out how to allocate the space between the two in a way that actually increases your profit. So you're adding a brand or a line in the hopes that it will make you more money. Whether it's the airline deciding to use this new gimmick, everything you're thinking about, and I think you made this comment in one of your quotes, everything you're thinking about is in the future, how to make more money. Not how to remain status quo. I think that's what you said. Nobody wants to be status quo. They want to be thinking how to become more sexy, creative. Image is important. How do we do that? Reinvent ourselves on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Which makeup to buy? Which clothes to buy? How do the clothes make the man personality? So you're running your business always thinking about how to make it better, as opposed to you like what you're doing. Because if you like what you're doing and other people are making their sexier, you lose. End of game. Pack up and head on out. So that is the idea here. You bring in this new product, you have the same amount of physical resources, you have to share your resources. The question is, how do you share your resources in a way that is best for the organization? You have to downsize what you're doing, if there's only a certain amount of resources, space and talent, etc., to bring in a new line. The older people who stay older, the people who are with the older product are going to be envious of the people with the newer product. Because you're thinking, we like status quo, you want change, we didn't get chosen to be a part of the change, so these people are, we hate that. Creates that tension. But the goal of the manager, the owner, CEO, is to increase the profitability. And to make sure that people don't mind moving from one location to the other, from one production process to the other, to make more profits for the shareholders so that everybody can end up in a better situation. How do you add a new product line? Whether it's kids, and the hope that having the kids go for a sale price is actually a good thing, it might turn out to be a bad decision. Companies make bad decisions, Americans, more room and coach. Bill Saputo's new store that was guaranteed to bring in 2.5 and brought in 1.6, and disappointments happen. It's reality. How do you prevent this from happening? The fact that you would see a store appear here and 6 months later it's gone, it's a good decision. So there used to be a store called Fresh Fair. Fresh Market, Fresh Fair, whatever. A grocery store. So Papa Joe's moved out of a certain location, and the real estate was empty, and this grocery store moved in. We left 6 months later. And they said that was an excellent decision. Within 6 months, they could not see a future of making profits. And they closed up the shop one day. Said, there's no point in staying. We're bleeding every single day, hemorrhaging. This market is not what we thought it was. Let's shut it down. Every time you have a favorite business that just closes, hopefully the person has made a smart decision to close. There might be some emotion over the decision, but the economics of the decision is a good decision. Because you don't see any hope for the future, pull the plug. This is an awful analogy. But your grandmother, with 1 year to live, and the operations and the money you're spending to keep her around for another year so that you can enjoy having your grandmother around in a not so great state. And Granny is saying, I want to go. And you say, but Granny, we don't want you to go. Please stay so we can enjoy seeing you once a month. And she's thinking, I want to die. Okay, terrible analogy. But the point is that sometimes we invest in things that are emotional, and the economics of it doesn't make any sense. So that's where we're going here. Let's turn to the problem I passed out. And again, I'll try to make sure the problem is manageable, because I still have to turn to this review. So here's what the textbook did with the, you can't see that, did with the problem. Oh, I do have it online. 1 second. So before I do that, and I might end up not going too far into that, all of these articles are designed to give you a sense that space or time or locations are valuable. And that if you don't count these costs, you will make okay decisions, but not the greatest decisions. So, opportunity cost of space, retail shelf space allocation, that is the Meyer other. Here's another interesting one that I'll briefly mention and then get back to my problem. The first time I talked about this, about 10 years ago, I talked about the fact that, and I think I told you this story, stop me if I did. We were building our house, I bought this chandelier, I mentioned that story, and a part was missing. I went back to Lowe's and I said there was a part missing. And they said, unfortunately, we have no more, we have to order it. And I went to Home Depot, and I said, gee, there's this part that was missing, the guy wants to reorder for me, but do you have this little part that would help me to get this thing assembled? He ripped open a box and took out the little part and handed it to me. He said, have a nice day. I said, what? You can do that? He said, yeah. I just tell the manufacturer we made the customer happy. It was the same brand of product. He ripped open the box, handed me the little part, and trashed the entire rest of the product. He put it in the compactor in the back, tore off the barcode and sent it to the manufacturer. We made the customer happy. It's not their merchandise. The manufacturer knows that he can make a loss on the product. If the product is defective, does the manufacturer want a defective product returned to him? Or is he willing to know that you haven't sold it, and therefore you prove you haven't sold it, because he has to then ship it back at the manufacturer's cost. He has to figure out what to do with it, figure out if it can be fixed. There's a store I go to, and this fits into, where they'll tell you that you can buy insurance on the product. And when you go to have a product repaired, they give you a brand new unit, and they trash the one you return. So it's not worth their time to figure out what's wrong with it. They'll give you a brand new product. So every couple of years I get a brand new vacuum cleaner, because I buy the extended warranty. It's cheaper to buy the extended warranty and have it replaced when it's broken, than to buy a brand new one. Because that's what they do. If you buy the extended warranty, you return the product, they give you a new one, trash the old one. I've heard of a lady who said that she doesn't buy new things, she just returns them to the store like a year later. I think those people are unconscionable, but anyway. Because the store will take it back. So she returns it. Said, this doesn't work. They don't ask any questions. They say, sure. So that's where it was going. This particular story. When Victoria's Secret has an end of season sale for that particular product, the stock that doesn't get sold, they go in the back with a pair of scissors and they cut it out. Okay, many stores do that. They destroy the merchandise if it doesn't sell in the sale. If we lower the price to the sale price and it doesn't sell, we destroy it. So this article was about people who were upset that was happening, that these companies were destroying the product when there were poor people who would happily take this product. It's like restaurants, they can't sell you food that doesn't get used by the end of the day. They have to get rid of it for health reasons. But there are people who are hungry who would actually eat the food because there's nothing wrong with it. Like the cookies that were upstairs that I brought down here. I should have probably tossed them. I will in a few minutes, but I kept thinking, my hungry students will appreciate these cookies. Anyway, the point is that opportunity costs are important. And I hope the point is made. It's cheaper for the company to destroy the product than to try to figure out what to do with it. For those of you who donate your used clothing, for example, or your gently used products, you're making an opportunity cost decision. I can hoard this in my home and never use it, or I can give it to somebody who will take better care of it. Hopefully it's not your pet. After 6 months you're fed up and you're taking it back to the pound or wherever. But it happens. These are efficient decisions. Economic opportunity cost decisions. So that article intrigued me. And a student in the class, she's the one who told me the Victoria's Secret story. She said, yeah, I work at Victoria's Secret. And we are given a pair of scissors and told to cut up the merchandise. We have to prove we've cut it up. So when the guy ripped open the box and handed me the part and put the rest in a compactor, he made sure that the manufacturer knew that this product is no longer on Home Depot's shelf. It's in the compactor. And here's the barcode to prove that the product is not at the customer's house or something like that. But this happens every single day in ways that we don't even understand. And these are called good economic decisions. Even if the emotion behind the decision is disturbing to you, it's an efficient economic decision. Now to the problem, a few minutes, and then we'll move on. So the textbook's version of the problem, which was a little complex, that's not the textbook's version, that's my version. The textbook's version of opportunity cost of retail space. This one here? Yeah. So I had to cut the pages because it was hard to photocopy the book. It was looking like this, and I didn't want to get all that ugly stuff online. So anyway. Profit maximization with limited capacity. It is the airline kids fly free case with a twist. It is anything that you have where you have two products and the marginal profitability is not zero. Marginal revenue is higher than marginal cost. The definition of marginal profit is marginal revenue minus marginal cost. So when you differentiate a profit function, you get the first derivative, marginal profitability. And we go for the crest of the curve, where the marginal profitability is zero for the highest profit. Anyway, so marginal profitability equals zero means you're doing the best you can. If you're constrained from getting to that point, the marginal profitability is still rising. So it's positive. And if you have two products, you don't have enough space, and both of them are operating with rising marginal profitability, but you don't have enough space, then you equate the marginal profitabilities. We equated the marginal revenues, remember, in the airline case? So marginal profit, if the profit function is given, equate marginal profits. If there's no profit function, equate marginal revenues. Actually, because the cost, and hopefully this will make sense to you, and I'm going to end up just sticking with the airline problem, couching it in this language. So I told you the marginal revenue for business was $330. I wonder why there's never any chalk. I guess nobody uses chalk anymore, right? Minus 2 QB. And the marginal revenue for tourists was 250 minus 2 QT. And these were both going to be positive. Because, well, they need to be positive. But they were also going to be greater than the marginal cost because we were constrained. And then we said, let's equate the two of these things right here. If the marginal cost is given, the marginal cost was 20. I hope you get this. I could easily say minus 20 minus 20, and instead of call this marginal revenue, I'd call it marginal profit. Because I brought the definition, marginal profit is marginal revenue minus 20. That's a definition. So if the marginal cost is constant, like $20 to seat a passenger, then I could do the problem as a marginal revenue problem minus a constant. But if the marginal cost is not constant, then I need to go for marginal profitability. If it's constant, I get the same answer, whether I do marginal revenue or marginal profit. I get the same answer. Because I'm subtracting a constant from both sides. Same constant. But if it's different, then I have to invoke that. I will not do that right now. The point is this. If the problem is given to you as a profit function, you're stuck solving marginal profit from business equals marginal profit from tourists. But that's not hard, as I said, just subtract 20. You're subtracting the marginal cost. So I can easily change this problem into a marginal profits problem, which might be what I'll do for next week. But just saying the marginal cost is 20, find the marginal profitability. And you'll know to subtract the 20 from the marginal revenue because that's a mathematical definition. In the bookstore problem, we weren't given the cost. We were given the profit function. Which meant that they wanted you to start in this location. So here's how the story went. You were running a textbook store on campus. And you allowed the publishers to tell you MSRP. I don't know if it's an MSRP. Manufacturers suggested retail price. Here's the price we want you to sell this book at. And here's how much you're going to buy it from us at, so your markup is given. Okay? So assume there's a certain markup. That's what so on all the units in your store, you know what the markup is. Same thing for every unit, just to keep things simple. And then you have this other product with a variable markup. You got to equate the marginal profitabilities of these two things in a creative way. The easy first starting point is if you were exclusively textbooks and now you have other stuff, go to the bookstore and you'll see they're not only selling books, they're selling other merchandise. Merchandise on which you can make a profit. Then if there's only X amount of space, you downsize on the first product to make space for the new product. And how do you make that the best decision? You go for the marginal profitabilities of the two products. You equate the marginal profitability and you're done. That's the textbook problem. You said you had these textbooks where you knew the markup. You bring in new merchandise where you have this variable profit function. So the marginal profit can go to zero. It can be anything. It's marginal revenue minus marginal cost. It's not a fixed marginal profitability. How do you allocate the space? If the cost is all the same, it's the airline problem again. $20 for everybody. Therefore, you equated marginal revenues. Equated marginal revenues is the same as equated marginal profits if all the costs are the same. If it costs the same thing to take care of a child as an adult, end at the end. So what I could do with the airline problem is say the cost of servicing a child is $10, the cost of servicing an adult is $20, just make them different. And we have the same problem as the bookstore problem. So I'll back off of the bookstore problem and do the airline problem in creative ways, but I'm just saying that there are many things out there that somewhat are baffling. Let me make the main point and then quit the lecture portion. You have a manager who's told to downsize to make space for a new manager to bring a new product line. The CEO needs to make the right decision to make sure you don't give the new product guy too little or too much space. Equate the marginal profitabilities of the two units. Otherwise, one is going to be too large and too small, and you want to find a sweet spot. To find that sweet spot, you have to build the marginal profitabilities equation. The problem is it's hard to know with a new product line how much space to allocate to that new product line. There's a temptation, at least in the problem that we were going to look at, to give the new product line a chance to maximize profit. So the new guy comes in and the manager says, okay, make the maximum profit you can on your product. Which means the other guy has to downsize. Because if he says, I need more space to make my largest profit, the old guy has to downsize. And there's animosity right there. Are you still with me? So at my church, the percussion guy said they needed a new drum set, and there was not enough space on the stage, so they voted to bring in a hammer and break up the organ, put a drum set there. And the organist is so angry. She's fuming. They destroyed the organ for a drum set because the modern music is more percussion. She looks at me and says, how is this a good decision? Well, it's a good decision if there's more younger people wanting the percussion than the organ. So she's out of a job. Anyway, the point is that you're allocating the space in the best possible way. You have to figure out how do we do that. That's what the problem is. if you go back to the original idea of the airline problem, and I'll stay there because I think that I've made my point, allocating the space is key. How did we allocate that space? We said that you equated the marginal profitability, marginal revenues. And in the problem, the marginal revenue from kids was given. So we said the price for kids was $100, and the demand for adults was $330 minus QB. That's the problem given. Maximize the revenue. Remember this problem? We had a capacity constraint of 270. It's the same thing as PT equals 250 minus QT and PB equals 330 minus QB, except we made this a horizontal demand curve rather than a negative slope demand curve. The only difference there is that if you have a horizontal demand curve, so here's something that you may have seen me do, but it didn't explain. QA plus QK equals 270. That's the quantity of passengers you can have. So we're not doing the bookstore idea anymore. Maybe it'll come up as a multiple choice true false idea question, but it's the same idea. It's just this is revenue, and that was profit. And if I give you the same cost, it's the same problem. All right. So the demand for kids was horizontal. And I drew it backwards because I want the capacity to remain at 270. So that's the demand for kids at 100. Okay, that's the origin for kids. Are you with me still? I have this quantity of seats available that must sum to 270. So whether I start from here or there, the total length of that is 270. If I put in the demand for adults, 330, obviously 330 somewhere out here, so I drew that too flat. Okay, so that's the demand for adults. This is demand for kids. You can see that the two demand curves meet right here, and then that would be the allocation. Adults, kids. If I charge everyone the same price, then that price would be $100. That's where I started the lecture, the video lecture. But then you only end up with 270 times 100, $27,000. You can do better. And the doing better requires that you equate marginal revenues. So MRA, and this is also MRK, it's hard to write backwards. And once you do that, the problem solves itself. Like magic. And what that shows you is that this is the allocation. Star. Because the MRA is equal to the MRK, that's the price PA, problem is done. So you have these differential prices. It was 215 and 100. And however you do this, whether you use a spreadsheet or you add on your fingers, you can't get more revenue than that. Because you follow the rule, which is to equate marginals. And in the bookstore problem, they give you a profit function, so it was M pi A equals MKA. And in this problem here, if I said do the marginal profitability, you have to subtract 20. If it's the same $20 to seat a passenger, subtract 20, and you got the marginal profit equation. Are you still with me? Let me make sure that you are, because I want to say, if I tell you the MR equation is MRA equals 330 minus 2QA, then the marginal profit is going to have a minus 20. Marginal revenue minus marginal cost. So that would be 310 minus 2QA. And the marginal profitability on kids would be 100 minus 20 equals 80. If I decide I want profit rather than revenue, I can easily scale the problem up by saying subtract the marginal cost of 20 from each one of these. And I've created two marginal profit equations. It should be obvious to you that the 20s are going to cancel when they set them equal to each other. So I didn't need to do that. Hopefully you got that. Just in case you haven't, if I set those equal, I'm going to get 310 minus 2QA equals 80. Which says 2QA equals, oh my goodness, help me, 230? So QA equals 115. which is the same thing that we got when we did marginal revenues. Because I put 20 on both sides with a minus sign, so they cancel. So if you set the problem as profit or revenue, it's the same thing. One of the good questions I'd like to ask is, why is it the same thing? Because the cost is the same. If the costs were different, then I'd get a different answer. So if you were challenging this question, having answered the question, you question the answer. First of all, you always need to ask, why are we maximizing revenues? No organization does that. They maximize profit. The shareholders don't say sell, 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 sell. That's dumb, 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 dumb. They want profits. Profits is what drives the stock. So if you can say, well, the costs are the same, then the marginal revenue and the marginal cost will give you the same answer. As you see here, 115, the same price. If the costs are the same, the problems are the same. So solving a marginal revenue equation is the same as solving a marginal profits equation. If the marginal costs are different, then it becomes a little more intriguing, which is why the textbook problem was intriguing, because it had these different costs. But what you do is hide the cost in the problem by just doing a marginal profitability question, because ultimately the business wants to maximize profit, not revenue. So we will not do the bookstore. We'll leave it at this. I'll ask as many intriguing questions as I can to make sure that you understand the context, the questions I can ask 2 years from now, and have you retain the essence of where we were going, as opposed to the mathematics of where the problem is. So we'll try and create those questions for 2 years from now for next week. In addition to a few calculations, but what will you retain? If I can ask you now what you will retain 2 years from now, and 2 years from now ask you the same questions, hopefully you'll remember because you understood the fundamentals. Okay. So in the interest of having, half an hour? 15 plus 20, half an hour. I have a few questions which might, hopefully you've seen it before. I'll go to the actual study guide. This is not the study guide. This was an extra page we had that called solutions. So hopefully, as you look at these questions, you'll be able to ask these questions to help yourself connect. So, I hate to talk about people in their absence, but I know I'm doing a lot of that. So, prior to this semester, this class was forums. Respond to these forums. And I keep thinking, you can't call that education. One of the forums says, calculate the Herfindahl-Hirschman index in your company. What does this tell you about industry? First of all, if you work for Oakland University, it doesn't apply. And if it doesn't apply, can you think of another company you refer to? It doesn't stuff. The questions did not translate well across many environments. So you will talk with your company, and if you can find reports for your company, it's easier. And if you can't find any reports because your company is a small company, it's harder. So it's an unevenness to the quality of the education. And I think that that is not high quality. And that should not be done. But you might decide that you hate me and you criticize all of this stuff, which is okay. I'm not thin-skinned. Well, I say that. Hopefully it's true. So here's a sample test that I put up. And I urge you not to just look at it and say, yeah, I got it, because that's not going to work. You have to... How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So what I say is, tell your significant others to give you some time, a chunk of time, leave you alone for like 3 hours, twice between now and next week. And I say, take this stuff and copy it into a Word document, 1 question per page, and simulate taking the test. Just so that you're familiar with the environment. Put 1 question per page, staple it together, call it test, give yourself 2 hours to sit down and try it, even the same things over and over. Anything you can't get, send me a note saying, gee, can you explain this? Scan what you're doing, take a picture, upload it, say, look at this, what did I do wrong here? I'm happy to provide that service for you. The goal is to make sure that you're comfortable with your learning. Okay. So try to keep the questions as close to this as possible, but then with some critical thinking aspects, which will be extra points because you're showing me that you can answer the question, and more importantly, question the answer, and think a little bit outside the box. The first question basically says, can you draw a demand curve? I give you the demand curve. On the handout you have, you'll see it. The vertical intercept is 1,000. I probably shouldn't ask that question because it's insulting to your intellect. To say, a demand curve, P equals 1000 minus 2Q. Can you sketch that? But I have to provide a place for you to get points quickly so you can get to that high score that you need. So, you know that the vertical intercept is 1000, and you know the horizontal intercept is 500, because when P is 0, 1000 minus 1000. And then I would say sketch the marginal revenue. You know it slopes twice as steeply, so this is going to be 250. And the marginal cost is 30. MR equals MC. So you're going to say MR equals 1000 minus 4Q equals 30 equals MC. That's the problem you're solving. If I say, what is the profit maximizing price? Then you set MR equal to MC and you get there. I may have told you, even though I will not admit to it, that if you add these two numbers together and divide by 2, you'll get the same answer. So 1030 divided by 2 is 515. 515. But I will never admit to telling you that, because you need to solve it the right way. Yes, question?
Oh, no.
Okay. So you'll solve for the quantity as well, because once you get the, well, in this case you get the quantity first. Using that shortcut you get the price first. And if I don't ask for the quantity, why not just use the shortcut? Please don't tell anyone I taught you a shortcut, because I would lose my job. Not really. My colleagues don't like me mentioning the shortcuts. So a few elasticity questions are going to come, even though I detest the concept, but just to make sure that they see. They're auditing the test to see that I am making a better experience for you than answer this form about your company. Calculate the Herfindahl-Hirschman index for your company. What on earth is this? And I'm sure they all got A's for that. And then they scored 30% on the assessment, because they learned nothing. Imagine that, if you're just answering forums and then you have an assessment 2 years later. What do? Well, we just answered forums. So we were giving away grades. We're already cheapening the education. So if you put the person to a test in the real world, oh, I don't know, because we didn't do that. We've devalued the education right there. Anyway. So, back to the actual question. That I said, sketch the demand curve. So this is the link to the actual solution. If you want to go back and forth, the video lecture, you click on the link, the video lecture will play and you get to hear me talk about it. And I realize to make these lectures at different times of the day, some of them are loud and obnoxious, so I apologize for that. When you put them in a playlist and you realize, your volume control. I'm going to develop a studio and figure out the acoustics and everything else so that everything is equal. Never do that. Alright, profit maximizing price and quantity, we just did that. How much profit if I tell you plug in a certain quantity into the profit function? You never do that. Easy enough stuff. And all that is shown in a video lecture or a document. The next question is the problem we were working on last week. I don't know if we actually finished it. I hope we did. So I want to give you that question again with a few twists. Given all the knowledge we now have about franchising and all that kind of good stuff, I'll bring some analytics, but also some informational things that everyone should know. How does this thing work? One of the things that intrigued me was when Bill said that he had $45,000 cash flow, and he had a $30,000 bank note, and a $32,000 rent note for McDonald's, so he's spending $62,000, earning $45,000. He can't make his payments. And the only thing McDonald's could do was say, okay, we can't tell the bank to forgive your costs, we'll lower the rent, because we can afford to do that. And he said, I made a small profit. They had the flexibility. McDonald's wants the sales. They want the $2.5 million. So egg is on their face when he only gets $1.6 million. Because they promised him, at this price you're paying for this, you will get $2.5 million. Sorry. Mea culpa. They have to take responsibility. Well, they have to. They could have said, sorry, but then you create bad relations going forward when you don't have people take your word. They paid a high price for a product. What do you do with products that you overpaid for and they don't work? You return them, right? So that would have been the case. Okay, you can get out of this lease and you'll put somebody else in it at a different price. Or we'll run it as a corporate store. But he said the only stores they want to run are the profitable ones. he said that in one of the video lectures, one of the videos. He said they will not sell a store that's making a lot of profit. Even though their plan is to divest of the stores, the way they divest of the stores is the lower profit ones first. Because that's a profit maximizing strategy. They need to tell the shareholders they're doing the best they can. And if they get rid of the profitable stores, it's like, can they say stupid and nobody be offended? That would be stupid. So they get rid of the stores that are underperforming. No, they keep the stores that are performing best. So the fact that they hold on to the M59 and Crook store tells me it's doing better than Saputo stores. The Rochester and 18 Miles store is a corporate store as well. That's like 2 miles south of where he is. So if that becomes less profitable, they'll probably sell that to him because it's in his area, moving from 4 to 5. And then he'll probably get the M59 and Crook store too once the profits are not as great. Or they decide that real estate is better than burgers. But he said that they need to train people too. People to come up through the ranks. So the CEOs in the past came up through the ranks, did every job in McDonald's. But in corporate stores, keep getting promoted. And if they need to be able to train people, they need to hold on to a few stores. Maybe not. Sometimes you can just bring in experts from outside, you know. I don't know. But anyway, that's how that's working. Anyway, back to the... So, you know to calculate profit, set up the profit function, turn the mathematical crank, and you get the maximum profit. If I give you some numbers that are discrete, between those numbers are possible prices and quantities, so you can't just look at the table and say, gee, this is the answer. You do the math and figure out how to get the best possible answer. Next question. So in this particular question, I set it up, and I'm going to do the writing on it here so that you see what I was trying to do with this question. This question was designed to shock you a little bit, to see if you are doing any thinking. How much thinking you're doing, I should have said. So let me switch to the document you have in your hand. Same words. Sometimes in doing the math, you don't take advantage of the fact that drawing the graph can give you insights. A picture, they say, tells 1,000 words, and a graph is not a picture. A student fought with me many years ago over that, because they said, keep looking at the graph till you see the answer. She says, it's a graph, not a picture. So I lost that battle. But I won the war. She got the grade that... No, sorry. That was not nice. She was struggling, and she just felt that every struggle was my fault. And then they bought the house next door to mine. Lovely, lovely. I see her every day. And I wave to her. So the first demand curve, they're written as inverse demand curves for a reason. But remember, Q is a function of many things. So this is the inverse of the demand curve. 330, 300. Taurus, 300. Business. Q, Taurus, Q, business. P, Taurus, P, business. So I want you to look at that and immediately react to it. What do you see? I haven't drawn the demand curves in, but you see the information there. What do you see?
The tourist falls twice as fast as the business.
Okay. The other way around.
Or less. Or
Half. 1, half. What else do you see? Again, it's these things that make you say something is wrong here. You can look at some data and say something is not sitting well here. What do you see that immediately gets your code here? What's wrong with this? If you can't see it, I'll fast forward. Just,
I was going to say the intercepts, the T is higher.
the first tourist is paying higher prices than the first business person. That's counterintuitive. So the answers you're going to get are going to be counterintuitive answers. And maybe you won't see it until the very end. And if you just set it up and turn the mathematical crank, you will never even observe it. You'll just say, these are the answers. That's what I mean by having answered the question, you question the answer. You got the right answer, but you didn't comment on the fact that the answers don't make any sense. So when you solve this problem, The marginal cost is 30. So let's use the graph we have here. Well, no, I do have the time to fix this. So I have 330, and the Taurus is half as steep as the business. So that's the business. It's 330. Sorry, 300, 300. This is 330. It's going to 660. But the MR curve will cut at 330. So I will stop that right there and just put 330 here. MR Taurus. Demand business. Demand MR business. 150. So I would like someone to comment on this. Anything that comes to mind. A question is acceptable as well. We're looking for intuition at 2 minutes to 9 o'clock. Got any gas left in your tank? If they want to maximize revenue, you know the midpoint or the MR equals 0 is the revenue maximizing point. So if I say maximize revenue, just go for the midpoint. And the midpoint here is 150. And the midpoint here is 165. So if I say maximize revenue, this is 330, that's 150. The revenue maximizing point, P, so rev max, PT equals QT equals, sorry, PB equals QB equals 150. And PT equals 165, QT equals 330. What do you do with that information? The airline is trying to price discriminate. It's carrying these passengers and work up the demand function. This is the answer. Make the maximum revenue. Again, I short-circuited the process by using the fact that the midpoint is where you maximize revenue. This is what I get. Comment on that. Intelligent comment or any comment? Yes?
It's not the max profit.
One is not the max profit. That's a good starting point.
Would it be fair to say that demand from tourists is higher than the demand for business travelers? Because they're willing to pay a higher price.
We can say a higher price, but to say the demand is higher, it might be the case because you might say, okay, I can fit the demand for tourists business under. So yeah, you might be able to say that. But the demand is constructed with many other variables. So the two-dimensional is just that snapshot. And it might be because of something changing. It's a weekend, it's a holiday weekend, nobody's going on business travel. So you start to ask logical questions. Since it's counterintuitive, you say, gee, why is this the case? You're not allowed to assume it's wrong as a starting point. You assume it's right and try to figure out what would make sense. When you can't come up with anything making sense, then you conclude it's wrong. Okay? Like that $500 trip to Barbados. Christmas Day, I'm thinking, I paid $1,000. Why is it $500? It made sense. They had empty seats. Vacationers shop early. Business people shop late. Who's going to Barbados on a business trip on Christmas morning? Nobody. So they drop the price to see if they can motivate someone to change their plans rather than going out for dinner with your family. Fly to Barbados. I told you my former best friend, flew to Europe and came back on the next flight because his miles were expiring. And they said, you are the biggest dummy I've ever met. I didn't say that. I thought that. Flew to Europe and came back on the next flight. He didn't want to lose his miles. Have you heard of opportunity costs? He didn't even do anything in Europe. He sat in the airport to wait for the return flight. So we see this counterintuitive and we try to make sense out of it even though we are feeling something is wrong. Because the thing that's usually wrong is that somebody messed up with the data. And yet we're coming to a wrong conclusion. So that's where I'd like for you to be able to answer the question, but be puzzling over the answer because you're saying, gee, why is it that PT is higher than PB on the same flight? Why is that? So we see this as the mathematical answer. We check to see if there's something wrong with the problem and say, gee, if I could fix this problem, if I suspect that somebody did something wrong, what do I suspect they did wrong? And you play around, you know. You try to use good judgment. And you might come up with nothing, but you get credit for trying. You see a problem, you say, there's something wrong here. I can't exactly put my finger on it. But I'm going to not let it drive me crazy. I'm going to figure it out. For example, I live stream every Sunday. There's this buzz in the recording. And it annoys me. And I'm trying to follow the line to find out, trying different connections because I need this to go away. Because every week it's the same nonsense. And I'm thinking, who wants to listen to this? The people who want to listen, listen. But everybody else is saying, this is terrible.
You got a power cord next to your audio cord.
Afterwards, you fix that for me. I need a consult. Anyway, the point is that you see something that is counterintuitive and you ask the question, is there a solution? And there might not be a solution, but at least you ask the question. And that's what I'd like to give credit for. After you've answered the question the answer, especially when it's counterintuitive. Or you make a note, I don't have the time, but this is counterintuitive. And you keep going. You get credit for that. Because you're not just answering the question. You're seeing that and saying, no, I know I did the math right, or I did the math wrong. In case I didn't do it wrong, this is counterintuitive. Okay? Check the box. Are you with me? I want to make sure that everyone is thinking. You're not blowing past that. Okay, so if you're maximizing revenue, how many passengers are you carrying? Is that right? If you're maximizing revenue, you're at the midpoint. 330 and 150. Which I think is 480. Then you start to ask the question, gee, what kind of aircraft carries 480 passengers? That's a big bird. The ones we looked at first were 130 seats. The 737s, and maybe 150 seats. The Airbuses might get to 300 passengers. And this requires that you know something about aircraft. I said, boy, that's a big aircraft. Humor me by saying, I looked at the number, I saw the number, and I said, gee, wow, look at that. It tells me you're paying attention. And that's all I want to know, that you're paying attention. I'll say it one last time. After you've answered the question the answer. Even if you don't have anything to question it, just train yourself to question every answer you come up with. By the time I'm done with you, I'll remake you into little mini-me's. So that's the other thing there. You see the inconsistency of the pricing, you see this, and you make a comment about it. Somebody said we're not maximizing profit. So even if I ask you to maximize revenue, and you make a comment and say we should not be maximizing revenue, we should maximize profit, you get credit for that too. You've answered my question, but you observe that it's the wrong question to ask. I asked the wrong question. You mathematically solved it, but you questioned the answer, yes.
No, like, it doesn't make a point, like, you mentioned this a lot, like how companies shouldn't really be, like, focused on revenue, maximizing profit. I just, like, noticed, like, a big trend, like, in the past few years, like, a lot of special startups, like, focusing on a lot of revenue, look like companies have been growing a lot, like Uber, Spotify, Airbnb, like, they're huge companies that have been growing a lot because they're focused on revenue, not really on profit, like, you look in the bank statements, like, they're not making a lot of money, but they're huge companies, and that brings value to the company, and I'm sure their shareholders have a plan in hand, at least I expect, to start making profit after that. But
we can start with Amazon for many, many years, making losses, and the stock value kept going up. It means that shareholders believe in the thing. It's like if your education, your parents keep pouring money into your education and hope that you'll make something of your life. Okay.
no, yeah.
So you fail a class and they should cut you off and they pay for you to retake the class 3 times. Not you, but I'm saying that we do this because we believe in the long run it will work out. The planning process is economics. The result is not economics. So I'd like to say the economist performs a surgery. Even if the patient dies from something else, the surgery is successful. The surgery is successful, but the patient died. That's all that matters. So we say we are surgeons. We perform the surgery, and we're unfortunately sorry that the person died, but the surgery was a success. So complications arise. So you do that, and you make sure that you're following what's going on there. And again, I just love to reward people who are paying attention. I don't penalize those who are just following the rules, but I like to give rewards to people who are paying attention. Okay. So all of that was mentioned on the handout, I think. And so I asked a question about the constraint, just to see who's paying attention. Am I paying attention? How would the answers change if the flight can accommodate 600 passengers daily? And you spend like 2 seconds on that and you blow past it. You say, well, we're not at 600, so we have excess capacity. We don't have a problem here. The quantity was 480. So if I put a capacity beyond the optimum quantity, and that was a revenue maximizing quantity, so it was not a constraint. So if I say there's this new constraint, but it's not a binding constraint, no problem there. I told you how this class was scheduled in the auditorium seating 200 students. And the reason they didn't put us in here is because the capacity on this class online was 35. And they said, this room doesn't have 35 seats, so we can't put you in here. I said, lower the capacity on the system. Easy solution. The room is empty. There are 20 students, but they can't put me in here because the official capacity on the room, the number of seats they're allocated for, is more than the room. So the software assigned me elsewhere and left this room empty. Because I went and banged on somebody's door and said, this is stupid, fix it. And they fixed it. Because I screamed. So I'm a troublemaker now, they said. Both of my classes are in Elliott. Both were far away up until the first day of class. And I said, this makes no sense. You have empty rooms right here, and you're sending me to get my steps in across campus? No, I want to be able to. Anyway. So I give you a non-binding constraint. You spot it as a non-binding constraint. You don't waste time trying to figure it out. You spot it immediately. So those questions aren't designed to tax you. They're designed to make sure you're paying attention. Okay. So there'll be no change because it's a non-binding constraint. The question that is the longest question on the test is the analysis question. I give you a scenario. It could be airlines again. You have these data. You put them to the computer. The computer gives you a result. Interpret the results. Because I think that's ultimately where your value is, that you can take data or receive results from someone and interpret the data. Interpret what the results are saying. And question whether the data are appropriate. So in this particular case, that's the demand function we have. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 variables. On the right-hand side, 4 independent variables. Oh, I had some classes earlier. Maybe I didn't. One second. Old age is becoming my least favorite part of life. And I don't have any glasses. Anyway, so I can make this larger. Control plus, Control plus. That doesn't work. It's a document camera. Zoom. Zoom plus. Man, I need to retire. Don't repeat that, said that, okay? Zoom plus. All right. So we needed 1, 2, 3, 5 series of data. Handed to the computer and said, give us the best result. Remember the default. If in the few seconds before it does the analysis, you don't tell it what kind of specification you want, it defaults to linear. It'll give you a constant coefficient. The ease of that is that it takes whatever data you give it, and it approximates. And the good thing about the approximation is that it's a good approximation. This technique will get you 90% of the way as a first pass all the time. So you give it 5 series of data, and you know this because you've had your appropriate classes. I'm wasting your time. And for different time periods, if it's time series or cross sections, then you say go ahead and specify, and it gives you these results right here. So the first set of points would be to make sure you can interpret the coefficients and I will write up the sentence, so you just put in arrows up or down, or to make sure that you don't write sentences that make no sense. Control the wording so that you just have to make a choice, multiple choice, increase, decrease, that kind of stuff. Move through faster. I don't have to read your words. I can just look for the right direction. So we want some people to volunteer to interpret those four coefficients. 1,200. Give me a sentence. And don't be afraid to be wrong. The only time you should be wrong is on the test. Should not be wrong, yes.
As the price of your shoes goes up 100, you lose 1,200 pairs of shoes. Isn't it?
Somebody else try. Yes, sir.
As the price goes up by $1, you lose 1,200 shoes.
Yeah. So 100 cents. $1. Change of 1 leads to a change of 1,200. By the way, notice the name of the company. All right. Somebody else. Don't all speak at the same time.
Your competitors raise it by $1, you gain 600 shoes sold.
Okay. So I'd like to put these two prices together. So if you and your competitor both raise your price by $1,
You lose
600. You add the two numbers, negative 1,200 plus positive 600. Okay. Next number. That's income. What does it say? You want to make sure you read it. Okay. Per capita income level. And it's given in thousands of dollars. So you want to be careful, huh? Go for it, somebody. I'll make it interesting. Go for it.
For every $10 that the per capita level goes up, you get 12 shoe sales.
Okay. Comment on that.
for every 1,000 increase in per capita gain 12 shoes.
How'd you get there?
Uh,
You didn't like what he said? Because I like what he said.
I was thinking 1.2 is reduce.
Ah. So you want to look and see. If I said in thousands, then you rescale. I'll try not to do that, but you want to make sure that the variable is not scaled inappropriately. Everything is in dollars, so you can go with dollars. So comment on that.
Superior good.
Look at the name of the company. So you start to say, well, this doesn't seem right. Shoes for less means it's cheap.
Yeah, if you reduce demand when you raise the price, but you want more income.
I'm looking, oh, sorry. Where's the voice coming from? Say it one more time.
Yeah, if you're losing customers when you raise your price, but you're also losing customers when you raise income, it doesn't really make sense.
So we're gaining customers.
With income.
It's a plus 1.2.
Yeah. But with the price, if you raise the price, then you're losing. So it just doesn't make sense.
It makes sense that when you raise the price, you shouldn't lose customers. That's called the law of demand. So that's like the only rule we have in economics is that higher prices means less is demanded. So the income coefficient is large on a product that's inferior. And the name suggests it's inferior. But people are flooding to buy it when they get wealthier. So imagine more and more wealthy people rushing to buy this product as they become wealthier. But the product is called Shoes for Less. According to the people I know who buy shoes, I have 3 pairs of shoes, by the way. But there's 103 pairs of shoes in my house. Just saying. They don't rush to stores called Shoes for Less. They become better off. So commenting on things like that, makes me feel like, okay, you're paying attention. You're not just solving the question and saying, so there's something wrong here. If the company is called Shoes for Less, and wealthier people are buying more and more shoes at this place, and it's a superior good.
PR people are good.
Huh?
It just means your marketing and PR people are good.
Or maybe you say, well, gee, if it's shoes for less, maybe this should be a negative coefficient. So whoever give the data wrote the wrong thing, because shoes for less suggest, then you go look at the data and see what the price levels are. So what does it say? Competitors are selling for 40, you're selling for 35. Shoes for less. If you're selling shoes for less, then there's no way that richer people are going to flood to your store, because that's not how rich people behave. Part of being wealthy is something called the snob effect. You don't have to be a snob, but it's called conspicuous consumption. That's why they drive better cars than you and I, and they live in bigger houses than you and I, and they go to more expensive and luxurious clubs and vacations than you and I. They want people to know that they're doing well. Of course, the really smart rich people save their pennies and watch their dollars grow so they can make a foundation later in life. I'm almost out of time. So I want to make sure that all that makes sense to you. You're paying attention to the sign. For example, if that's a plus sign and you think, gee, this doesn't sound right, you make a comment, I give you extra credit because you're paying attention to the problem. And then the advertising, and then I'll take the last comment. So this one is not scaled, so your 0.06 means you want to scale up to 100. And then you want to ask that troubling question. For every $100 in advertising, you sell 6 more pairs of shoes. So you advertise $100, you sell 6 pairs of shoes at $35, so that's $210 in sales for $100 in advertising. That's a sweet deal. You're rolling in cash there. How much do the shoes cost you to produce? Well, so if you know how much they cost you to produce, then you have to make sure that the cost is less than $110. Because if it costs you more than $110 to produce those 6 pairs of shoes, which when you take 110 and divide it by 6, you're at less than $20. So you're buying them for less than $20, you're selling them for $35. And all of this, that you spot this, tells me that you're paying attention. I'm happy when that happens. You're not just answering a question, you're questioning the problem. So I can make most of the tests in that vein, so that I know that everything's in front of you. Where's Waldo? The critical thinking aspect is done, and I feel happy that 2 years from now you'll still be a critical thinker, even if you can't do the MR equals MC problem. Yes, sir, you're going to ask a question. We have 1 minute. Excuse me. Do you still have a question?
No.
Okay. I'll hang around till the last person leaves. We'll arrive at 6:30. I'll look at the study guides, and I'll either photocopy or put the best study guide here. Photocopying is probably better. I'll put one up and run upstairs and photocopy. Or I might come up with a better metric, but I reserve the right to do that. I might let you keep your own study guide. Then I'll put one up here. I'll put the best one up here, but you might even keep your own. The one that will help most people is the one I put up. The goal is to get you to the finish line.